Hey guys, thanks for stopping by. Today's video is going to be reasonably short, and it's going to be specifically to the installation of the HF antenna, the Tarheel 200 that I have, back onto the rear of the Pajero. I've had it off for a little while, had a bit of an issue with it. Turns out it was just a cable connection, so we sorted that out and we're throwing it back on. There are a number of people who've got Pajeros and have been interested about how I mounted this antenna on the rear of the Pajero, so this video is going to be for them. John specifically, this is for you, and of course you, Justin, as well. It's pretty straightforward, there's not much to it. I'm not going to go into the cable running or anything like that, and depending on where you've got everything, that may be different. I'm going to route the cables myself. For now, I'm just going to do a temporary install just to make sure everything's still working, and just throw the cables over the top, and then I'll get around to pulling panels and stuff like that. When I do pull the panels, I'm going to remove this rear quarter, the driver's side rear quarter. I want to run some additional wiring up to the back there, to that switch panel that I've got there. And a few people have asked me to show a video about removing that panel as well. So I'll get around to doing that. Going to run that. Going to put a couple of internal Anderson plugs on that side, run off the auxiliary battery. I'm running out of connection. Rather than just sticking in a wire adapter to run the fridge and other things, what I want to do is just have a couple of Anderson plugs panel mounted, so I can just plug things in and I'll have them set up to one of those switches. So let's jump in. Again, pretty straightforward. Tarheel 200, back of the Pajero. Just going to show you how I mounted it. For removing this back panel, it is just a case of getting under it with a screwdriver or the like, or that one still popped out, and just running your hands around it. And you will feel it pop off. And I hate these bloody pop stud things. Quite often what it does is leaves the pop stud in the car. Once you get that, it's just a case of wiggling and she'll come off, and then going around picking up all your press studs and pushing them back into the actual piece itself. There are 5 on the back of this. You can see that sits roughly there like that. So you've got 2, I guess, at the extremities, one there, one in each corner, and one sort of, you know, maybe a third of the way down. There is also another section here, which is kind of like a T-piece that sticks out. This needs to slide onto that, but pretty easy to remove that. Just to give you an idea how this actually works in place, I have marked this up nicely so I can see which is top. That's convenient. That sits inside the wheel here. That basically just sat in here like this, just on the inside. The bolts come through, the antenna went on the outside, and then just tighten up. But it is a bit of a pain in the backside to tighten it up because there's barely just enough long. They just go through the holes in the actual antenna mount itself, and it's just hard to get your hands in there. So we're prepared for a bit of a fight, but this is basically how it went. To do the next step, as far as actually getting it all mounted, I have to open it up and undo the wheel. Okay, so if you've got a Pajero, you know how to pop the rear wheel. Just go into your rear door, a couple of little tabs just here. Just take those off, don't lose them. I thought I'd lost mine the first day I got the Pajero. I wouldn't have been happy there. And inside, get your wheel lug wrench, I suppose we call it. And there's a couple of bolts in there. Literally just going to back those off. Sorry, not just back them off, you're going to take them out. They're big, don't lose those. It does pay to just grease those a little bit every now and then. Once you get those done, come back to the outside of the vehicle, grab this section and lift ever so slightly and pull. There you go. That's how she works. Now that we've opened that up, that gives me much better access to getting in here. Get in here a little bit easier and faff about. I'm just trying to remember roughly how I had this mounted before. It was something like that. Those seem to be clearing, only just. Now, as part of the little fix that I had to do to repair it, the wire was broken basically right at the base of the antenna, so I've actually had to hardwire the new one on. So it's going to be a bit of a pain in the backside when I go to route this, but so be it. You can see there, that's the mount of the Tarheel, and those holes will just line up with those there, and that effectively just becomes a clamp like that on the rear wheel carrier hinges, I suppose. I'm just trying to remember whereabouts I had this mounted for height, etc. I think that was it. Just because I wanted to have it at its lowest point, I still wanted to have the whip clearing the top there. Again, as I said, it's very bloody fiddly. Basically just trying to get the first one done. I think when I originally did this, I actually had the Tarheel out of the mount, which made it that much easier for me. But I think I could get away with this today, but I could be wrong. And then just a case of tightening it all up. You'll see with that sitting there, that rear wheel carrier still works. Once that's tightened up, that doesn't shift, it'll just stay like that. And that rear wheel carrier will still work and doesn't interfere with those hinges. I'll give you a close up in a sec once we get it tightened up. So that's it. So that's the quick video of how I have mounted the Tarheel 200 AHP on the back of the Pajero. Hopefully that's helpful to anybody that has sent me questions or asked me, whether it be on Facebook, YouTube, whatever the case may be. I looked at other options. I think you've probably seen the other attempt that I made at a HF antenna mount. I'll put a link up in the left-hand corner, I think it is, right-hand corner, to that video where I just put a piece of steel mounted on the inside of the frame, and I was just going to put the Chameleon 2L, I think that was, that I had there on the back of that. I'm going to have the tuner inside, but in the end I really wanted a nice big antenna like this, and I am considering again swapping it over for the Coden 9350 because I think it's a little bit more rugged. I'm probably going to handle some of the rough stuff that I put through taking the four-wheel drive off-road. I like to get in and do a bit of that.
So close. Nah.
One more. And I really don't want to damage this. It's got more moving parts, and obviously the Coden is a little bit more robust, I think, than the Tarheel is. Certainly that's what my friends tell me, and they're trying to talk me into a Coden. So if there's anybody in the Newcastle area, VK2, that's interested in the Tarheel, I do have an ad up on VK Ham, looking to see if there's anybody out there that wants to swap for a Coden. I'll be looking for a D model, obviously, or newer for the upgraded internals, or a refurbished one of the older ones with the upgraded internals as well, either or. So if you're in the area and you're interested in the Tarheel and you want to do a swap over or something for the Coden, give us a shout, let me know. Otherwise, this is just a video for the guys that have shot me messages. Hopefully that's helpful. If you've got any additional questions, stick them down below. I'll do my best to help you out. Cheers guys, catch you on the next one. Titan, come on mate.